Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, episode number 206, presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the Marshall Plan 65-Step Strategic Process. For those of you new to the show, I'm your host, Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. Welcome. And with me today is a very special guest, and I can't wait to tell you about how we met. But just a little hint, it has to do with the podcast. This is Tate Sandrock, who's sales associate with Newcastle Realty. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, Tate.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
It's nice to have you. So Tate Sandrock was born in Columbus, Ohio, and grew up in the Midwest. He spent most of his adult life in Wisconsin until, together with his wife and two children, he moved to Maine in 2019. Tate and his family moved here for the relaxed pace of life and to see and jump into the water daily, including a swim streak he has with his son Owen that is nearing 100 days in a row. That's awesome. I love that. Tate has done a lot of different types of work, from being a stay-at-home dad, teaching elementary school, working as a personal exercise trainer, to now working as a real estate agent with Newcastle Realty in Damariscotta. In conjunction with his work as a real estate agent, Tate also does property maintenance and landscaping work. His brand motto is, "I do it all and with a smile." Currently, Tate is working on defining his brand and building his network, and he is an avid listener to the PR Maven Podcast. Thank you for that, Tate. So tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Well, once again, it's just it's really feels special to be here with you and your smiling face and be here in the studio. And this is actually my first podcast ever. So
congratulations.
It's very exciting. Got into real estate when we moved to Maine in 2019. We worked with Newcastle Realty. We had an excellent agent, Sarah Rogers, and that just kind of got my wheels turning about wanting to become a real estate agent. And Sarah encouraged me. I kind of did what you encourage people to do, is just get out there, right, and jump in. I contacted the designated broker of Newcastle, Dennis Hilton. We had a great conversation, and that turned into a 1-year mentorship to become an agent. And I'm just in year 2 of working in real estate and with Newcastle, and I love it.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice that Sarah kind of encouraged you and didn't feel threatened by you? Because some people are threatened when a new person comes into the business.
Yeah, definitely, especially in real estate.
Right, exactly.
And I also had a great mentor, Debbie Schling. She continues to help me today, and she is always kind of saying that same message, like, don't worry, we're not competing with each other. Really want to help you out. So it is a great, very supportive agency that I work for.
That's awesome. Well, this I love because I want to share the story behind how we met and why you're on the podcast today.
Yeah. I do. I think about this and think that this is a great story, right?
It is.
So I get the Realtor magazine. All the realtors at Newcastle get the Realtor magazine.
Maine Realtor.
Yep, put in their mailbox. And I like to glance at it, see what the articles are. I think it's a great publication. And I saw your article that was in there, entitled "Talk to Strangers," and I thought, wow, that's something that I do, and I thought, well, I definitely want to read this article, and it really just it checked so many boxes for things that I try to do and am always trying to do better. That being, get out there, talk to strangers, meet people, learn their names, all of those things. Get out and about in your community. After I read the article, I wrote you a letter, and at that time, I didn't know that you also really enjoyed letter writing. I wrote the letter because that's something I like to do. From there, you contacted me back, which I was excited to get your response. And that has, as we know, turned into us becoming pen pals officially, over a year of writing each other back and forth. And then I got your books, listening to the podcast, just really soaking in all your lessons and tips, which I really enjoy. And we only met this summer, I think about a month ago, for the first time. You were very kind to invite me out to go on your boat with your son Craig, and we had a great time. And I guess we should mention that you have a home up on Damariscotta Lake, which is only a few miles from where we live. So there continued to be lots of connections.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. I just love this story. And you just sent me your latest letter yesterday in the mail. And for one thing, Tate has really nice penmanship. So he must have been a good student in school, learning how to print correctly. And I just so appreciate the notes. And he has really nice note cards. And again, it comes in an envelope in the mail. And the thing about letter writing is that it takes a little more effort than an email or certainly a text. And if you send a letter to somebody in the mail, it's almost like honoring that person. Like, I honor you enough to take the time to sit down and put pen to paper and then put the stamp and take it to the post office and all the things. But it's funny because in this letter you said something like, well, sometimes it can feel like you don't have time to write a letter, but then you just sit down and do it, and it only takes less than 10 minutes. Heck, maybe 5. It feels like it's time to really take hold of summer and take hold of this day. And I love your attitude towards life, Tate, also. Not only do you like to talk to strangers like me, but also like swimming and jumping in the water, because I'm a big advocate of that. And then another thing I just want to comment on is when you did come with my son Craig and me on the boat, you asked him a lot of questions. My son is age 29. He has an exciting career in insurance, and you really listened. I observed you asking him questions and how intensely you listened to what he was talking about, because you probably noticed he's a little junior version of me as far as networking and sales. But you really took the time to listen to him, and that kind of honored him as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was thinking about that listening topic this morning, getting ready for this podcast and looking back over your book, and you mentioned that in your book, and also in honoring of your mom, and speaking that was who she was, that she was a very selfless individual. I never had the privilege to meet her, but I can see that you learned that lesson from her to let people tell their story
and listen. Yeah, because sometimes people will ask other people questions and they don't really care about the response. They're just in their mind, they're thinking about the next question, but they're not thinking about what the person says. So thank you for bringing up my mom. Yeah, she passed in June of this year, 2022, and I'm sad about that, but I try to just be grateful that I had such a great mom and a role model for my life. Although she wasn't nearly as extroverted as I am, I'm much more outgoing. And she would sometimes say, "I don't really know where you came from, like I came from space or something." But we would laugh about that. But she also was a big advocate of letter writing.
Yeah.
So tell me, why do you write letters, and when did you get started?
Yeah, I would say for me also, my mom, who is still with us today, is a very big letter writer, like very big letter writer, and I think that's part where I got it from, as well as, and this is another connection that you and I share, is writing letters at summer camp. And I remember at summer camp, I went to a great camp in Wisconsin. Deerhorn was the name of my camp. My wife also went to summer camp, and she jokes that's why she married me, because that I went to summer camp. She knew that I was going to be a good person. But I remember you had to bring a letter to get into Sunday night to the meal. You would come into the dining hall and you had to give a letter. It could be to anyone, but that was your ticket into the meal. And I think many people who have gone to camp probably have some memory of letters and the excitement of getting letters and, sitting on your bunk bed, writing letters to friends. And that stuck with me, through college, getting letters from my mom, sending letters to my friends. It's something I still do today, to all sorts of people, whether it be, friends, family. I use it now as a tool with real estate, as well as, sending letters. I just sent a letter the other day to a gentleman at the Hammond Lumber in our town who gave me great service. And I always think it's really fun to send people like that a letter, because they're really not going to expect it, getting that at their store.
Definitely not. I think it's sort of a dying art.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but especially younger people like you, again, they kind of resort to using texts and emails, but a letter has so much more significance. And at a store like Hammond Lumber, I could see how they would like tack it up on the wall behind the cash register, and the person who it's about or who is the recipient would be very proud that they were the one that. So that's awesome that you did that. I want to talk a little more about how you use it in sales, because I think this could help other realtors or other people who are in sales. Again, I think building a personal brand is about differentiating yourself. And if you're the one who is the letter writer, you're going to be more memorable. So how do you use it to in sales?
Yeah. Well, I will also say that my designated broker, Dennis Hilton, the owner of Newcastle Realty, he is also a big letter writer, and he one of the perks of working for Newcastle is I get free stationery.
Yeah, these beautiful note cards.
Yeah, so this one actually isn't from Newcastle, but many of the ones that I send you are with local Maine artists, and there's just boxes of those at our office, and he's always encouraging us to write at least one letter a month, and it's almost like, to anyone, it doesn't matter who, just write a letter. But in something that I try to do with the letters is definitely as a thank you. I had a recent closing with a client. He purchased some land, so that's a no-brainer. Write a letter to them, thanking them for that opportunity to work with them. Follow-ups after a meeting. I mean, the email follow-up is just to me like that. If I get that, I don't value that at all. But if someone writes me a letter, I definitely value that. And then I write a lot of letters to generate leads. So my very first listing with Newcastle Realty was the result of writing a letter to a house that I had passed by, and it looked like no one was living in it, but it was being maintained. We know in Maine there's a lot of second homes, homes that people maybe aren't living in or living in, for a short amount of time. I wrote them a letter, had no idea who they were, and they followed up getting back to me, and that turned into my first listing and my first sale. And currently, right now, I have a listing that was also generated by writing a letter to a house that I drive by all the time. There's been a lot of letters that I never hear back from people, and that's to be expected. Interestingly, I've gotten 2 letters back from people who they thanked me for the letter and said that they weren't interested in listing, but they wrote me back, and I've saved those because I thought this was I can't believe they took the time to write me back and say, like, thanks for writing the letter. We're not interested, but thanks for doing so.
Yeah. Well, part of it is to make it easy for yourself, and I imagine you do this too. I mean, you mentioned that you have the note cards and envelopes at the office, but if you also have stamps handy, and I sometimes actually even put the stamps on all at once.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I can just picture, I'm thinking again of my sons who are in their 20s. They probably don't have stamps, and like when it comes around to, getting a card and an envelope probably wouldn't be matched. And it seems like a big undertaking, but if you have all the supplies and you have a pen handy, and it makes, like you said in your card to me, it maybe takes 5 minutes, and then if you know where your closest mailbox is to send it.
Right. Like I imagine on your desk in your home, I can just see it, and there'll be probably a little container with all these nice orange pens, right, and set up in your stationery, because I think every card I've gotten from you has been something different, which is also fun. Some people, I think, more fun. Some people may always use the same card, the same stationery, which is nice, right? But I enjoy that yours are always very different.
Yeah. I do have printed cards for Marshall Communications and for the PR Maven. But yes, I do enjoy it, because when I'm out shopping, of course, that's usually the first thing my eyes go to, or like the note card or stationery section. And I do like buying that kind of thing. So I just think it's, and I imagine you probably have taught your children to be letter writers too, right? Yeah,
definitely. We always encourage the thank you cards after birthdays. But our daughter started kind of being a pen pal with her cousin this summer, and she's really enjoyed that. And I always kind of say, we all like getting letters, and if you want to get letters, then if you need to write letters. If you write letters, then you kind of increase your chances that you're going to get a letter.
That's right, absolutely. Now, I really think this is a secret weapon that salespeople in all industries should be using, and I think very few actually do. So I think, again, it's a really way to make yourself stand out from the crowd. So I want to talk about how personal connections enhance your life personally and professionally.
Yeah, I think, again, I think it was one of maybe your mini podcasts recently, you were talking about that very subject and how that often becomes very blurred, right? Like a personal connection then leads to a professional opportunity and vice versa. A professional opportunity turns into a friendship, and it's very positive, right? How that happens, and I would say that's it is so true, and it's those connections as you teach people. It's your network that you build that is going to have positive impacts personally and professionally. A story that just happened last week. checks a lot of these boxes was my daughter and I, we were driving home and we saw somebody on their bike on Route 1 going up this hill. And it turned out it was, they were on a tandem bicycle, and it looked like a older man and a younger kid. So I love, of course, talking to strangers and people who are doing long distance adventures or journeys. I'm very curious about their story. So we drove past. I asked my daughter, should we go back and say hello? She's getting trained on how to talk to strangers, right? And that it's okay, and it's safe, it's okay, when done appropriately.
Right.
So we stopped at Spears roadside stand and bought a loaf of blueberry bread, and we turned around and we drove back up and we found them and we pulled over and we gave them the blueberry bread and we met them, and it was and I said to my daughter, now maybe they're just biking for the day and that will be cool, right? Or maybe they're biking the whole state of Maine, and that would be really neat. And then I said, well, maybe they're coming all the way from California, and that would be incredible. It turns out that they were coming from North Dakota. His name was Kevin, was the dad, and his son Will, who I believe was only 11 or 12 years old. They'd biked over 2,000 miles on a tandem. They were finishing up in Acadia in just a few days, and it was an amazing story, and just got such a thrill out of it.
They must have been so appreciative
Yeah.
and amazed that you took the time to go buy them some blueberry bread.
Yeah. Well, then I went home and I was doing some work for Newcastle, and I got a text message that said, from Kevin Sanford, and something about having a mechanical issue. And I was thinking, I don't know anyone named Kevin, mechanical issue. I thought this was some kind of scam, right? Like we get these texts and they want us to give them our Apple ID or something. And I quickly erased it. And,
oh, no.
And then I had another message, and it turns out, this was just a few hours later, it was Kevin. And he was calling me on the phone, and they were having bike issues with their chain. And it was getting late in the evening, and they were supposed to get all the way to Belfast, and they were definitely not going to make it. And so I looked at my schedule and moved a few things around, and I ended up driving up to around Rockland area in my truck, and we put their tandem in the back of the truck, and I drove Kevin and his son Will to Belfast to spend the night. And had a great opportunity to talk with Kevin. He's from Colorado, and kind of bringing this all around is, I have a new friend in Colorado now, and
who you can go skiing with.
Exactly. And he said, if you come out skiing, we're very close to Telluride. You have a place. Let's keep in touch.
Wow.
So that's where.
Did you help him fix his bike?
I couldn't help him fix his bike. I wish I was more mechanically inclined, but I was able to help them get closer to their destination.
Oh, good. Well, I know you know how to work on bikes because you worked on my bike. I bought a bike for $100 from a neighbor and had some issues with the tire that I didn't really know how to do, and so you helped me replace the tube in my tire, and I appreciated that very much.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's a great story about Kevin. I love that. And I know you'll probably keep in touch, maybe even send him a letter in the mail. Did you get his address?
Well, that's the beauty of, the internet today, is you can look people up and find their address. And if you can't find their home address, of course, you can find their company or their business. And so then oftentimes, and he is on my list of people that I need to write to, and that letter will go to his business.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe your daughter will write to his son,
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
which would be great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to continue more with this great conversation with Tate, but first I want to remind you that you can get free access to my latest book, Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand, which Tate has with him. Visit prmaven.com/giveaway and download a free copy today. And now we're going to hear from Mike Duguay at Thomas College.
After reading PR Works, I really started to think about how marketing actually works. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but what I realized is that each platform nowadays that we use out there in digital media and social media has its own nuance and also quirks to it. And understanding how they're used is exceedingly important. Because when you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. And you can't approach it that way in marketing. And that's where I think Nancy's brilliance really shined in PR Works. I think Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand is really sort of the manifesto of understanding that there's many different levels to marketing. It's on your personal side of your brand, how actually you express yourself through business, but also what people hear you saying and what they see out there in the public eye as well. So I think what's really important there, that's really the blueprint of how you go about using these new social media platforms, but also to express who you are as a human being. Because people want to see you authentically and genuinely working with not only what you do, but also with the customers. And Nancy, on a personal level, I think that's who she is. She embodies that approach.
Tate was just saying, because he's been listening to the podcast for so long now, he knows everything that Mike Duguay says. Yeah. That's great. I was just telling him that I look forward to introducing him to Mike, because I think the two of them have very similar spirits towards life and enthusiastic about meeting people and doing fun things in the outdoors. So that's one thing that gives me great joy, is when I know two people from like different universes and I can bring them together and introduce them. So I really enjoy that. So I'll introduce you to Mike Duguay.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
So Tate, how do you define a personal brand and why is it important in sales?
Yeah, I think I know branding for you is branding and networking, right? Are your two big things, and I think that brand for me, as a real estate agent, is really personal, and it's my personal brand. It's what I do day to day, how I interact with people, and also this idea of differentiating yourself, right? That I think I hear you talk about a lot. There's a lot of competition out there, right? And if it's a restaurant, real estate, PR, like how are you going to differentiate yourself? So for me, part of that is letter writing, and part of that is, trying to think, what do my clients need next? And then trying to provide that service for them or provide that contact for them, whether, they're looking at a piece of land and I hear them mention, something about wondering how much it would be worth to cut down and clear the parcel. That would be a cue to me to send them an email with a contact of a forester or someone who would be able to provide that service for them. So part of my brand is trying to anticipate what I can do for people next, and to do those little things, those small touches, which I think a letter is a great example of one of those small touches, and that's what people are going to remember you for, right? For your smile, for your name. I think in your book you reference this. It's it was a Maya Angelou quote, I believe. It's how you make people feel, right? That's what they're going to remember.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you for remembering that. Yeah, it's Maya Angelou said, it's not what you say, it's not what you do necessarily, but it's how you made them feel. So you need to really be empathetic as you're talking to another person,
Yeah.
and somehow focus on them more than you're focusing on yourself, or how you can help them, which obviously is what you have done. So how do you find listings in this competitive real estate market? There's a lot of, as you said, a lot of realtors out there trying to get listings.
Yeah, well, talk to strangers, right? That's what it comes down to. Actually, when you were talking about people may not have stamps, and you really kind of want to set yourself up for success for writing letters. My mentor at Newcastle, Debbie Schling, she would always joke that, you have a better chance making a contact, getting a listing, walking from the office to the post office to check the mail for Newcastle versus sitting inside the office and waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for someone to come in. So sometimes, I don't mind going to the post office, because I look at it as it's an opportunity, right? You never know. We always say that in real estate. You never know where that next listing is, or you never know that person that you meet, what that may turn into. My second listing that I got was meeting someone at a yard sale, and that's actually something that I think other real estate agents do, is because someone having a yard sale may be cleaning out their house for selling it, or thinking about it, and so you maybe increase your odds. But I met a gentleman, and he was having a yard sale at his house close by to me, and that turned into a listing in a sale last year. So something that I need to work on is my social media and my LinkedIn, as I kind of hear your voice like saying I need to build my LinkedIn page. So that's something that I need to work on and take advantage of. I think, like you say, for me right now, it's been getting those listings kind of on a more face-to-face level, meeting people.
Right, exactly. I could see how in your situation with LinkedIn, if you link with all the business owners throughout your region, and then make a connection and follow what they're talking about, and give them a shout out, because then they will remember you if you're linking with them and following their content. So that's just one thing that you could do in the Damariscotta, Newcastle region. There's also a new book that I'm reading right now called The Midcoast by an author named Adam White. It's a great book. It's actually a fictional novel about Lincoln Academy and about the lobster boat industry. And I'm not going to give it away, but it's a highly recommended book. I'm like, I have about 50 more pages, and on the one hand, I want to finish it because it's so good. But on the other hand, it's so good I don't want to finish it, because sometimes, like, after I finish a really good book, I'm like, I missed that book.
Is that the one where it has the like Waltz's soda fountain?
Yes.
On the front cover of it?
No.
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 It's a different.
But yeah, the Waltz's soda fountain is a cool place. But no, that's not.
Okay.
It has a lobster boat on the front cover, I think. So speaking of books, what is a book, an app, or a podcast that has helped you professionally and personally, and why?
Yeah. Well, I know you always end your podcasts with that question. Right? And people give different answers. So I thought that actually, instead of referencing a PR book or a podcast, that I would share. I find it here. That I would share a poem instead, right?
Nice.
Something different, right? And in the world of differentiating yourself, I thought would be something a little bit different. So, and actually, there's a store next to Newcastle Realty called the Kingfisher The Queen. A beautiful store in downtown Damariscotta. And right next to their front door, every week they tape up a poem on the wall outside, and then they have a little mailbox, and they have copies of the poem that you can take. So kind of like letter writing. It's not something you see a store posting a poem, but I really enjoy reading their poems, and I see a lot of other people we know walking the streets of Damariscotta, especially in the summer, stop and read their poems. So this is a poem that I picked up on outside their wall.
Are you gonna read it?
Yeah, I'm gonna read it.
Cool.
Yeah. It's called "Don't Quit." Okay, and it says, "When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure come about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up. Though the pace seems slow, you may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell just how close you are. It may be near when it seems far. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worst that you must not quit."
I love that. And who is that by?
This is by John Greenleaf Whittier.
All right. This is the first time that anyone has ever brought a poem and read a poem on the PR Maven podcast. So congratulations.
Thanks.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I noticed you also brought not only a copy of my book, but the little cookbook that I made in honor of my mom. And you said you made something from that cookbook this morning.
Yeah, so this is the cookbook that
Oma's favorite recipes.
that Nancy shared with me, and I was flipping through it, and the recipe that caught my eye was the Morning Glory muffins, and I knew that I should definitely make a batch of those muffins this morning and bring them to the podcast, and I already sampled one, and hopefully we'll be able to.
And what did she say in the recipe about that?
Oh, she said that these you could live off of these muffins because they have pineapple, shredded carrots, shredded apple, shredded coconut, craisins, pecans. I mean, the batter was. I was like, this batter is so thick. Like, are these really gonna turn out? But they turned out beautifully. So.
And Oma used to
yeah.
bring those to the ski races when my sons were racing in college, and all the other racers loved it when Oma came because they knew she'd have something good to eat, and it gave her so much joy to share with them too. So thank you for making that. I think that's awesome. I see you have some of the ingredients highlighted. Those are probably the things you had to buy
Exactly. Yeah.
at the Hannaford in Damariscotta.
That's right. Yeah.
One of my favorite places.
Yeah. And a great place to talk to strangers, right?
Absolutely. I was at the Hannaford in Portland this morning talking to people. Yeah. And also the pharmacist knows my name, which I think is so awesome. And every time she asks me for my birth date, I'm always like, well, you're not going to believe this is my birth date, really. And I say it almost every time, and she laughs every time, and we laugh about that. So anyway, Tate, I think we could go on forever, but this is so much fun, and I'm so honored to have you. And thanks to Maine Realtor magazine for running my article on how to talk to strangers, and thank you for thinking that was fun and great, and writing me a letter. And, I hope that our letter writing continues, and here it is. Yeah, when I see that beautiful penmanship in my mailbox, I'm always happy. So, have a great day, PR Maven Nation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast.
I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the skills and games section to find and enable the PR Maven podcast flash briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.